And this is
from NBC News World Headquarters in New York. This is NBC Nightly News, reported by John Siegenthaler.
Good evening, everyone. More than 2,000 postal workers in Washington, D.C. are being tested for anthrax after one of them was diagnosed today with the inhaled and more dangerous form of the disease. Officials say the man is gravely ill but responding to antibiotics. He works at the Brentwood Mail Center where an anthrax letter was processed. We begin with NBC's Joe Johns outside that mail center in Washington. Joe?
Good evening, John. The third person in the U.S. to test positive for inhalation anthrax is now listed in serious condition at an area hospital. 2 other people connected to this case are being described as suspicious based on their clinical illness. Meanwhile, this postal facility behind me has been closed down.
As officials notified his co-workers, there was a steady flow of people coming in to be tested and to pick up a 10-day supply of antibiotics. Anthrax anxiety was already spreading in the nation's capital today as the hunt for an invisible enemy expanded in full force from Capitol Hill to the Postal Service. Authorities said the postal worker diagnosed with inhalation anthrax showed up at this Northern Virginia hospital on Friday, complaining of flu-like symptoms. The diagnosis was confirmed today.
Sending the prayers and condolences of everyone in our city to the gentleman who is now gravely ill from contracting anthrax here in our city.
The prognosis for inhalational anthrax is not great. He came in pretty good condition, and we have somebody there who's monitoring him, all the time.
The testing was ordered for more than 2,000 postal workers and contractors, most employed at this sprawling Central Postal Service facility in Washington, D.C., plus another 150 workers at a smaller airmail facility, which was also closed at Baltimore-Washington International Airport. The worker who tested positive was believed to have moved between the 2 locations, authorities stressing no need for general alarm.
We do not think at this time that the general public who may have gone through that facility need to be taking medications or need to have evaluations.
As the search continued to determine the extent of contamination of buildings on nearby Capitol Hill, an increasingly important question, whether the infected postal worker somehow came into contact with anthrax from the contaminated letter addressed to Senator Tom Daschle. That letter passed through the Brentwood Mail facility. A total of 4 anthrax hotspots have been located so far out of 19 buildings on Capitol Hill.
And we're not at the point where we can render an opinion of whether this is a cross-contamination situation or if it was a situation that was a second letter.
The Capitol itself will remain open tomorrow, but office buildings on Capitol Hill, as well as this postal facility, will remain closed until authorities can determine the extent of the contamination and get rid of it. John?
NBC's Joe Johns in Washington. Joe, thank you. As a result of this new inhaled anthrax case, there are new questions and a new wave of anxiety. NBC's chief science correspondent, Robert Bazell, joins us now. And Bob, what's a possible scenario for this postal worker's exposure to anthrax?
Well, John, investigators are trying very hard to find that out. In order to get inhalation anthrax, somebody has to breathe in a cloud that contains anthrax spores. The best guess is that if it was in an envelope, perhaps an automatic sorting machine goes very hard letting out that cloud, or if it was in a parcel, the parcel could have been dropped or shaken.
Bob, this man with inhaled anthrax is in serious condition responding to medication. On the other hand, we hear that inhaled form of anthrax is very deadly. What do doctors really know about it?
Well, John, we have to remember that inhalation anthrax is such a rare disease in the United States that the last case before this last few weeks was in 1976. So doctors don't have much experience with it at all. The second man in Florida to get anthrax, Ernesto Blanco, has the inhalation form, and he seems to be doing just fine on antibiotics. So doctors now believe that if it's caught early enough, the prognosis is very good.
Have officials really been able to assess the overall potential public health threat here?
Well, we have to keep in mind, and this is very important, that the only thing that seems to have happened is that letters went to U.S. media organizations and to the U.S. Capitol. And the only people who have gotten sick or have been exposed are people who worked in those offices or who worked in post offices that processed the mail going there. So there does not seem to be any evidence whatsoever of a threat to the general U.S. population.
NBC's Robert Bazell. Bob, thank you. Now for the latest on the U.S. military campaign in Afghanistan, and NBC's Nora O'Donnell joins us from the Pentagon tonight. Nora?
Good evening, John. Today, the U.S. campaign in Afghanistan intensified with a new round of airstrikes that could help anti-Taliban forces push south toward Kabul. As Operation Enduring Freedom entered its third week, aircraft from the USS Theodore Roosevelt took new aim against Taliban fighters north of Kabul. Fresh plumes of black smoke could be seen near the front lines holding off the Northern Alliance.
People say, well, there's nothing in Afghanistan. Well, there's a lot of military things in Afghanistan, things that support the Taliban war machine, and those are the kind of targets that we're going after now.
But the Taliban claimed 18 civilians were killed and 23 hospitalized when U.S. bombs hit a residential neighborhood north of Kabul. The Pentagon could not confirm reports of widespread casualties. An Afghan doctor today confirmed a report last week that the 10-year-old son of Taliban leader Mullah Omar has been killed. In response to the U.S. air and ground assault, Taliban leaders vowed to turn Afghan civilians into soldiers and distribute rocket launchers, heavy machine guns, and anti-aircraft guns in towns and villages across the country. If true, it could pose a deadly threat to U.S. Special Forces on the ground, who Friday night easily struck targets in Kandahar and left behind pictures of New York firefighters. Officials said the mission was part psychological warfare to show U.S. might and also to gather enemy documents, which sources say are now being analyzed for clues to the whereabouts of Osama bin Laden.
We're still in the process of evaluating that intelligence.
And today, the Pentagon released the names of 2 Army Rangers killed in a helicopter crash in Pakistan. Specialist John Edmonds, 20 years old, of Cheyenne, Wyoming, and Private First Class Christopher Stonecipher, 28, of Missoula, Montana. Both bodies were flown to Germany's Ramstein Air Base, where military honors were rendered when they arrived this morning. John?
NBC's Nora O'Donnell at the Pentagon. Nora, thanks. There is word tonight that the hunt for the world's most wanted terrorist, Osama bin Laden, is in a new phase. President Bush himself has given the CIA leeway to go after him using any means necessary. NBC's Virginia Cha joins us from Ground Zero in New York City with that story. Virginia.
John, as the smoke continues to pour from the rubble of the World Trade Center, we've learned the man blamed for the terror attacks is now specifically targeted.
He was cited as the prime suspect in the terrorist attacks the moment they occurred. Osama bin Laden, the wealthy son of a Saudi construction tycoon, is the founder of the al-Qaeda terrorist network. Now, as first reported in today's Washington Post, bin Laden is the target of an unprecedented covert action by the CIA. According to one senior official, the president has given the agency the green light to do whatever is necessary. Lethal operations that were unthinkable pre-September 11 are now underway.
I want justice. And there's an old poster out west, as I recall, that said, wanted, dead or alive.
The president's tough talk at the Pentagon 6 days after the attacks may now be seen as more than just talk. The CIA's budget has increased, and covert operations can now include never-before-seen levels of coordination between the agency and military units. The Post cites a missed opportunity last spring. According to the paper, at a time when bin Laden was secretly being videotaped, neither the CIA nor the U.S. military had the means to shoot a missile or another weapon at him. Now they do. Today, the new tough targeting of bin Laden was endorsed by members of Congress from both parties.
Our forces ought to have the power and the authority of the President of the United States to strike at bin Laden and the small group around him directly. It's not only the right thing to do. Frankly, in a tough situation, it is the moral thing to do.
The unprecedented aspects of what we are facing clearly, I think, warrant using whatever means necessary.
As the CIA now focuses on new weaknesses said to be identified in bin Laden's network, more remains have been recovered at Ground Zero today, reminding Americans of the horror of what happened here. John?
NBC's Virginia Cha. Virginia, thanks. Now to NBC's Kerry Sanders in Afghanistan, where it is still believed bin Laden is hiding. Kerry, how easy is it for someone to hide in that country?
Well, John, if somebody wanted to hide here, they could go undetected for years. From what I see, men often have their heads covered and usually their faces as well, just to hide from the harsh weather conditions here. And then a man could easily dress as a woman, wearing what's known as a burqa. It's a head-to-toe cover that prevents anyone from seeing who's underneath. And while Osama bin Laden is tall at more than 6 feet and might stand out, due to cultural and religious reasons, a man can't simply walk up to a woman in a burqa and ask her and talk to her and strike up a conversation.
We've heard so much about the geography of Afghanistan. How does that affect things?
Well, it is a big country here. It's about the size of Texas, and it is 24 million people here. But it looks as if Afghanistan is the perfect place for somebody to hide. It has these vast mountain ranges, some of the peaks at more than 20,000 feet, and then there's some very narrow valleys that are almost impenetrable. And then finally, there are the caves and the tunnels. It's a network of tunnels that was very effective for the Mujahideen in their war against the Soviets. And even though the U.S. has some sophisticated bombs, it's believed that even those bombs could not cause a complete collapse of the actual tunnel network. It looks as if even if the CIA were to put somebody on the ground here, they're not just going to bump into Osama bin Laden and spot him. It's probably going to end up taking somebody here who knows where he's hiding, turning him over to the United States. John?
NBC's Kerry Sanders in Afghanistan. Kerry, thank you. And when NBC Nightly News continues, President Bush's recruitment of reluctant allies to the war on terror.
I am every man
and every woman who ever suffered from frequent, persistent heartburn.
If you've treated your heartburn and changed your diet, but it comes back 2 or more days a week, then you may know about the burning pain of acid reflux disease.
But there's something about acid reflux that I didn't know.
Over time, that acid churning up can wear away the lining of your esophagus.
I didn't know.
I didn't know.
I didn't.
But today, there's a purple pill called Nexium. It's from the makers of Prilosec. Just 1 prescription Nexium a day gives many people complete resolution of heartburn symptoms.
That could mean complete heartburn relief.
And importantly, Nexium is also proven to heal erosions in the esophagus caused by acid reflux. Only a doctor can determine if you have this damage. Other serious stomach conditions may still exist. The most common side effects of Nexium and Prilosec are headache, diarrhea, and abdominal pain. So talk to your doctor and call this number for more information and for a free trial certificate for Nexium.
Relieve the heartburn, heal the damage. It's possible with today's purple pill called Nexium.
It's LensCrafters' best $99 offer ever. Right now, get a complete pair of glasses with DuraLens, our most scratch-resistant plastic lens for only $99. The $99 DuraLens event. This is one you don't want to miss.
29, 30.
Now at Red Lobster, you can get 30 mouth-watering shrimp for just $9.99. Red Lobster, go overboard.
Used to be I could set fire to the keyboard, but recently it felt like my arthritis was choosing the notes. I thought my jazz days were numbered, but my doctor said no way. For minor arthritis, you've got to keep those joints moving, and he recommended Advil to make it easier. It's strong enough to let me control the pain, and Advil is gentle on my stomach. Hear that? That's me playing again.
Take Advil and take control.
Why do I eat?
Healthy choice sesame chicken.
Because it tastes great.
Because my body needs...
My body needs balanced nutrition. Why do I eat healthy choice?
That's why.
The ground war in Afghanistan. For complete coverage, turn to NBC. On the air, on cable, and on the internet, America Strikes Back on the networks and stations of NBC.
President Bush is on his way home from China tonight following a summit of Pacific Rim nations. The focus was supposed to be economic, but as NBC's Campbell Brown reports, topic A was terrorism.
On the final day of the summit, a symbolic show of unity. President Bush and the other APEC leaders posed for a photo in traditional Chinese silk jackets. And today, China's President Zheng read in English the carefully negotiated joint declaration against terrorism.
We condemned in the strongest terms the attack
APEC members pledged to enhance cooperation in the war on terror, but would not condemn Osama bin Laden personally or endorse U.S. military action in Afghanistan. Still, the president insisted he's pleased with APEC's response.
The people of the United States need to know that we're not conducting these operations alone. We've got universal support around the world.
And surprisingly strong support from Russia. After a one-on-one meeting between President Bush and President Putin, who has defined Russia's war in Chechnya as a battle against terrorists, today called the U.S. military response to September 11th, quote, measured and adequate. But the two leaders remain at odds over Bush's plan to build a missile defense shield, banned under the 1972 Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty. Bush wants to abandon the treaty, explaining again today the threat to the U.S. is now even more clear.
The events of September 11th make it clearer than ever that a Cold War ABM treaty that prevents us from defending our people is outdated, and I believe dangerous.
Putin dismissed the chances of terrorists getting their hands on a nuclear missile that could reach the U.S. and said his support for the ABM treaty hasn't changed.
We believe it is an important element of stability in the world.
But what both leaders emphasized today was the progress they're making and how much the U.S.-Russia relationship has changed. The ABM dispute will be the focus of talks at their first formal summit next month in Washington and at Bush's Texas ranch. Campbell Brown, NBC News, Shanghai.
To Homeland Security now and the economic fallout resulting from tighter security on America's southern border. Here's NBC's George Lewis.
A crackdown on the Mexican border.
Hi, sir. How you doing? And what are you bringing back from Mexico today?
Pedestrians now have to go through metal detectors and put their bags through X-ray machines. Everyone walking across the border gets his or her ID checked now. All parts say agents of the new war on terrorism. Here at San Ysidro, south of San Diego, people sometimes wait as long as 2 hours to cross into the United States. It's the world's busiest border crossing, 15.3 million vehicles, 8.3 million pedestrians every year. But now, because of the stepped-up security, traffic has slowed to a crawl.
People should expect more scrutiny, more delays. Unfortunately, we have to do this to protect the nation's borders.
But merchants on the border say the bottleneck has driven most customers away, threatening to bankrupt many businesses.
At this rate, if nothing is done immediately, they'll probably have to close their doors within the next 3 to 6 weeks.
By some estimates, border commerce pumps $3.5 billion a year into the San Diego economy. And now that's threatened.
It's a disaster. You can't sacrifice these levels of commerce and quality of life for the sake of security. We got to learn how to do both of them.
But right now, the federal government's focus is on border security. And some critics say the feds aren't doing enough, pointing to large, wide-open areas of the 2,000-mile-long border where there's little or no law enforcement presence.
The Border Patrol nationwide is about 7,000 people right now. We need a Border Patrol of about 20,000 people.
More people, tougher inspections, more delays.
And we're going to be in this heightened state of alert for at least the foreseeable future, and we may have seen border life as we know it change forever.
The border bottleneck in San Ysidro may be just the beginning. George Lewis, NBC News, San Ysidro, California.
And some of the day's other news in just a moment.
How can you provide for the future of the people who depend on you? With the power of Pacific Life. For over 130 years, Pacific Life has improved the lives of millions with investments, annuities, and insurance. Because careful planning today can help them reach their dreams tomorrow. Discover the power of Pacific Life.
Be adventurous. Be plugged in. Be involved. Be powerful. Be yourself. Because it's your choice, your voice, and your attitude. Today's AARP.
Monday, Going home for the holidays? Now's the time to make travel plans, but many don't feel safe. What are you supposed to do? How do you decide? NBC
Acura. Experience the performance today at your local Acura dealer.
Hi. I don't know what the problem is. I think there's something broken in there. I was wondering, before you get started, can you give me prices for 3 of your competitors? You know, don't want to pay too much.
Hey! Our customers are used to getting a great deal because at Progressive.com you can get our price for auto insurance and the rates for up to 3 leading competitors.
We want you to save money, even if it's not with us.
Visit Progressive.com today, where you can shop and buy instantly. No waiting for callbacks or emails. Or call us anytime at 1-800-PROGRESSIVE.
I don't suppose you have a website, do you?
Call, click, or visit Progressive today.
Once again, Lowe's is improving home improvement. Now at Lowe's and only at Lowe's, you'll find new Fast Lock Formica flooring. Beautiful ceramic and stone laminate floors that go together in a snap. No muss, no fuss, no glue. Fast Lock is the easy and affordable way to get beautiful ceramic-looking floors. And Lowe's promises low prices every day, guaranteed. Now that's improving home improvement. Use your Lowe's card and there are 0 payments, 0 finance charges for 6 months.
A successful chapter today in a long and difficult deep-sea recovery effort. The wreckage of the Kursk, the Russian sub which sank in Arctic waters more than a year ago, entered a dry dock today, moving Russia closer to keeping a promise to recover all 118 bodies. The Palestinian-Israeli conflict is going through one of the most dangerous phases, and what happens next could affect the worldwide battle against terrorism. NBC's Martin Fletcher has our report.
It's Israel's biggest operation ever against the Palestinian Authority of Yasser Arafat. Tanks and troops surrounding and entering 6 West Bank towns. Palestinian gunmen fight back. At least 12 Palestinians killed this weekend. Their leaders warn this could lead to all-out war.
We call upon our people and upon the Palestinian security forces to defend Palestinian areas against the invaders.
But Israel says it will put its forces out of any area where Arafat stops the violence. That's tough, though, Israeli leaders say, because Arafat is part of the problem.
He's neck deep in terrorism, and he's trying to show that he isn't.
As the two sides trade insults and bullets, fighting is interrupted only by funerals. A 22-year-old Christian girl killed by shrapnel while standing in a doorway. Another innocent victim of a cycle of violence with apparently no end. But Israel's prime minister insists after Palestinians assassinated an Israeli cabinet member Wednesday, Israel will not compromise. Until terrorism stops, Sharon warns, Israeli troops will stay where they are, whatever the consequences. Washington is worried the fighting could degenerate into a wider conflict, and that could undermine the wider effort to present a unified world stand against terrorism. Prime Minister Sharon's aims are now clear. He'll do whatever it takes to stop terror attacks against Israelis, even if it means confronting President Bush. Martin Fletcher, NBC News, Tel Aviv.
And coming up next, weapons and warfare, present and future.
If you have osteoarthritis, you owe it to yourself to learn about Celebrex. Celebrex specifically targets only the COX-2 enzyme, a key source of arthritis pain. Celebrex relieves arthritis pain, plus inflammation and stiffness too. Celebrex should not be taken if you've had aspirin-sensitive asthma or allergic reactions due to aspirin or other arthritis medicines, or certain drugs called sulfonamides. In rare cases, serious stomach problems, such as bleeding, can occur without warning. Tell your doctor if you have kidney or liver problems. powerful 24-hour relief from osteoarthritis pain, inflammation, and stiffness. Ask your doctor about Celebrex, the #1 selling brand of prescription arthritis medicine.
It's LensCrafter's best $99 offer ever. Right now, get a complete pair of glasses with DuraLens, our most scratch-resistant plastic lens for only $99. The $99 DuraLens event. This is one you don't want to miss.
Hello. Ocean Spray introduces the less tart taste of white cranberry. Great for drinking.
Kevin?
Even better for spilling. You've never tasted anything quite like white. New white cranberry from Ocean Spray. Brave the wave.
You'd try anything to get some relief from your nasal allergy symptoms. But before you change your life, make an easier change. Multi-symptom Flonase relieves all these nasal allergy symptoms: sneezing, itchy, runny nose, and congestion. Flonase once a day relieves them all day and night. For best results, use daily. Side effects are generally mild and may include headache, nosebleed, or sore throat. Ask your doctor about multi-symptom Flonase. When you get it all it takes is Flonase.
Every once in a while, television brings you a character you never forget. Do I have your respect? Tonight, Golden Globe winner Ving Rhames takes on UC Undercover.
He's not gonna make it. Abort.
In an unforgettable performance.
We in business, baby!
All new UC Undercover, NBC tonight, 10/9 Central.
See what a difference today makes every day on NBC.
Earnings season is here as major companies report their profits or losses at this critical time. How will it affect your investments? Watch CNBC all business day.
Finally this evening, as U.S. warplanes pound Afghanistan virtually around the clock, an example of how war has changed in the 21st century. The Pentagon is using a number of high-tech tools and has still more in development. NBC's Dawn Fratangelo has our report.
Unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, are fast becoming vital to intelligence gathering.
What they provide is aerial reconnaissance using several different sensors, television cameras, thermal imagers, at no risk to any forces.
The most widely used UAV is the Air Force's Predator that sends video of an area of interest in real time back to soldiers nearby. In Kosovo, it identified targets on the ground and monitored Serbian troop movements. The Air Force is developing a more sophisticated and lethal unmanned plane, one that actually carries bombs and missiles. A top-secret combat plane called an Unmanned Combat Air Vehicle, or UCAV, was only recently unveiled to the public. The Air Force envisions squadrons of these fighter planes without pilots, taking on the most dangerous missions, like locating and destroying enemy anti-aircraft artillery and surface-to-air missile launchers.
There are many officers across NATO forces who would argue that 50 years from now, the manned combat aircraft will be a thing of the past and UCAVs will be the primary weapon in air combat.
Launch! And the Army is developing UAVs for its soldiers that are so small they're called micro-air vehicles.
Here we go.
The goal is for troops to be able to carry the UAVs in their backpack. Dawn Fratangelo, NBC News.
And that is NBC Nightly News for this Sunday. Now here's Jane Pauley with a preview of tonight's edition of Dateline.
Thanks, John. Is it possible the terrorists who are spreading anthrax are getting their deadly materials from stockpiles once created by the Soviet Union? And could any former Soviet scientist be involved?
We believe that some of them have defected to countries like Iran, Iraq, Syria, North Korea in order to feed their families.
On the trail of biological terror, coming up on Dateline, John.
Thanks, Jane. Tom Brokaw will be here tomorrow. I'm John Siegenthaler in New York, and I'll see you back here next weekend, if not before.
From KGW, where the news comes first, this is a Northwest News Channel 8 at 6:30 Special Edition. America Strikes Back.
The people of the United States need to know that we're not conducting these operations alone. We've got universal support around the world.
Covert ground operations and airstrikes continue in Afghanistan, and anthrax worries rise as a man in Washington, D.C. comes down with the most deadly